So every year in the month of November, Las Vegas, Nevada, and the Las Vegas Strip, the strip that we all love and the strip that we all know, loses its soul as it prostitutes itself to a big, giant global entity that could care less about locals, about low-level people that are just worker bees in the casinos, and sure as hell doesn't care about you.
We're trying to get to work, we're trying to find interviews and keep things going consistently, and then the whole F1 ordeal is just deliberately messing with that process, it feels like.
I'm talking, of course, about F1, but in this video, we're going to touch upon how this event is clearly destroying and picking apart the city bit by bit. We're going to talk about what I will call local prostitutes in our government who are complicit in the dismantling of Vegas and taking away its heart and soul, and I'm going to prove it to you with some facts. How's it going, guys? My name is Steven. How is it that we can have an event that runs at 12 in the morning Pacific Standard Time, 3 in the morning East Coast time, that nobody in America really, for the better part, even cares about, and have it return and tear our lives apart and your vacation apart every year? It's money. But it's something deeper, which I'll explain, so stick through to the end of the video for that. Yes, F1 season and back, and we're surely going to talk about it. All right, so if you don't know the history of all of this, it actually didn't just start last year. F1 started in Vegas in the early 1980s when F1 thought it would be a cool idea to utilize some of that outdoor space that Caesars was using back then for big boxing matches and build a track on a dirt pad that nobody liked. Even back then, nobody liked F1 Las Vegas. I'm not kidding you. Back then, though, it was different things. The track ran opposite so they could get better viewing angles. It had very little straightaways, too many curves, and the drivers just generally hated it. F1 was a failure in the 1980s. I did a whole video on this. It's a shorty. It's about 4 minutes long. I will put a little link up into the corner of the screen, whichever corner it pops up at, and post it up in the first comment of this video. But you can go watch that and get a general idea. F1 seemed dormant in the United States with the exceptions of a race in Austin, Miami, a couple of different races here and there, until the post-COVID era where the F1 people got together with the LVCVA people, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, and said, would you like to have billions of dollars of corporate money? Of course, the LVCVA being the, in this case, prostitutes that they are, which we'll explain in a moment, said sure. And before we knew it, the city was basically thrust into turmoil. If you have been following Vegas closely, which some of you have, you guys would have known what happened last year. But speaking of following me closely and following Vegas closely, have you subscribed to the channel yet? I am busting out tons of different history and things on you. And if you guys haven't subscribed, you should do so now. Because what we discovered this year on a live stream a few weeks ago, which I'll unveil to you in a few minutes, just made my blood boil. And if you were subscribed, you would have known that happened. But last year was definitely a shock for a lot of people. It was a shock because they didn't tell us what was coming. We had no idea. All we knew was that there were going to be supercars running on the Las Vegas Strip, and this time it would be the real Strip. They would feature that cool new sphere that they built. The city would get a ton of exposure, and for a time, it was good. Until it wasn't. Until they spent about 6 or 8 months ripping up the Strip, because it turns out that when you have supercars driving down Las Vegas Boulevard, you have to be sure to install proper roads for those cars. Until they built temporary bridges that led to lawsuits that are still ongoing from local properties like the Ellis Island and a group of different business owners that had been in business for decades before F1 even showed up. Yeah, until those people started to complain that they lost business because of bridges that wiped out their business for the better part of a year. The bridges are back this year, by the way. Just if you're curious, they haven't solved anything. Until local businesses, local restaurants on the Strip that just so happened to have good viewing angles of the track were threatened with mafia-type notices reported by the New York Post that if they didn't pay up and pony up as much as $100,000 in some cases based on the occupancy of their venue, they were going to have things like spotlights shined into their businesses in order to obscure the views, something that has been addressed this year with various watch parties, but still not the best way to make your way into town. And then there were the ticket prices. The ticket prices were off the chains. They were ridiculous. Thousands of dollars to go and see a sport which most people in North America are not in tune with. This would be like if you were trying to host an NFL sporting event in the middle of a country that had no idea that it even existed, and then you were telling everybody in the local vicinity to pay up because this big thing that you never heard of is coming, and most of the people don't know about it, but we got a bunch of rich executives from America coming in. And by the way, if the locals want to go to that NFL game in the middle of nowhere where they don't really follow American football, it's going to cost them $1,000 a ticket. It was a total fiasco, with other things like the Bellagio having its olive trees cut down and chipped into little bits literally in the middle of the night. These trees have been in front of the property since the property opened in the 1990s, only to be replaced by trees in boxes so they could remove them this year. Good idea, except when all of those trees died and were then chipped and replaced with new trees that have survived and have again been removed to build a giant grandstand, which it comes to where we were on the Strip. See, it's bad enough that people will come from around the world. They come here to see the Bellagio fountains. So they'll come here from around the world in order to see the Bellagio fountains, only to find that a giant grandstand where tickets are $250,000 in some cases has been constructed, completely wiping out their views, that the Bellagio fountains are now running at half capacity because they have a giant construction site on top of it. And not to mention, again, what we discovered, which was giant, huge metal corridors being built on the bridges that normally give you the best views in the world. All right, they're doing, what are you? Oh, you guys are gotta be kidding me. Are you serious? For real? So last year what happened was they put up these big, giant, thick barriers on the glass walls up here. And the whole idea was that you're a cheap bitch. You didn't pay $200 or $500 or $10,000 to sit over there. It's $250,000 to sit in front of the Bellagio. So you don't get to see F1. So what they did was they put up these barriers. And now it looks like we got a little less temporary. Now, if this stays through F1, this is absolutely salacious to do this. This is like, you remember seeing Goodfellas? You ever seen Goodfellas? And on Goodfellas, there's this scene where he's like, I don't remember his name. He's like, that was Paulie, you know? Paulie always got paid. He was like, oh, I'm sorry, your mother's in the hospital, F you, pay me. Oh, your kid broke his leg and you had to pay the hospital bill, F you, pay me. You know what this is? F you, pay me. This is BS. Because last year, they installed film. See, they want to obscure the views for us so-called cheapskates who can't actually afford to go to the race, which runs at 12 midnight, and we'll get to why it runs at 12 midnight in a minute. But last year, when they installed a type of film on the glass to obscure the views, you know, crafty tourists took out their pocket knives and ripped the film off and watched the race anyways. This year, they were smart. They installed giant aluminum barriers that you can literally bang on, as I did in my live stream when we were the first, I believe, to discover it. And if you were subscribed, you might have seen that live stream, so be sure to subscribe right now. But it all comes down to prostituting yourself out for money, not in a sexual way. I don't want to imply that. That is absolutely not what's happening. But this man here in the next clip, the clip I'm going to show you, this is Stephen Hill. He's the CEO and president of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. In this clip, he's not talking about F1, but he is talking about the Oakland Athletics Stadium, another mega project happening on the Las Vegas Strip that was funded by taxpayers. But when he was asked about the financials of the project, here's what he said.
Specific documents will the Fishers show publicly to the stadium board, validating the funds that they have to build the stadium?
It is the stadium. Each of the stadium authority board members will have the opportunity to review third-party information. This is the summary is coming from the Fishers, but the individual items are coming from auditors or statements from banks or other financial institutions, so that you can see that a third party has attested to that information.
Will those documents be made public?
They will not.
And why so?
They're confidential.
Will those documents be made public?
They will not.
Okay, so you heard that. he basically said it's none of the public's business what the financials are. And in a lot of cases, this might be the case. In the case of T-Mobile Arena, which was built with entirely private money and not a drop of government assistance and taxpayer dollars, this might be an appropriate response. But in this case, it's not an appropriate response. You see, what Stephen Hill seems to forget is that huge tax allowances were carved out so we could tear down the Tropicana and create a giant asbestos cloud on a 70-year-old building because John Fisher, the owner of the Athletics, has promised that he has his own private funding. So the fact that Steve Hill basically was paramount in getting the F1 to Vegas, only to not tell people what kind of pains they go through for the first year in Vegas, and not really tell people that, by the way, we're going to close down the Bellagio for a period, and we're going to have absolutely no viewing angles, and we're going to prevent you from viewing, and these people are going to act like gangsters, only to tell people that they have no business worrying about this. And people are suing the F1. They're fighting against the LVCVA right now to get some kind of recompense for lost businesses. Literally, businesses closed forever. There was a Porta Subs shop on the corner of Koval and Flamingo where this giant monstrosity of a temporary bridge exists. Yeah, the fact that none of that was disclosed to us, that's the scariest thing of all here. Because again, it's not about enriching businesses 24/7. The state of Nevada and Las Vegas is known as a very, very business-friendly town. And I'm happy it is. It means that we have, lower entry and regulations on things coming here. It means that we get to enrich your experience. And it means that we get to help the city. But when an event comes through, runs itself at 12 midnight Pacific Standard Time, 3 in the morning Eastern Central Time, for a sport that nobody watches, for a sport that doesn't enrich the local economy, which we have proof of because luckily last year they did the numbers, and in the month of November, the only properties that really gained were, the Wynn, the Encore, the Bellagio, the Venetian, and the Palazzo. Downtown lost money. When this sport comes in and disrupts everything to this extent, it's not about you, the tourist, anymore. It's not about you, the visitor. It's not about me, the local. There's no trickle-down economics happening. I'll tell you what it really is. What it really is, and I've been saying this for the last 2 years or so since they announced this, and they said the race would be at 12 midnight in the middle of the night in November, at the slowest part of the year. This is about forming a 2-day commercial for Vegas outside of the North American market. Plain and simple. This is about making sure that we have all those really cool aerial shots and about having all of these foreign media companies that cover F1 like we cover NFL sports here in the United States, covering this for 2 days in markets that are 10,000 miles away from us. So it's not benefiting you. It's not really benefiting the employees. It's not benefiting anybody except for the people at the top. And look, I'm no ultra, Bernie Sanders type, but I would like to see events that come into town like the Super Bowl where people can have a great time together and it runs at a reasonable time of the day. I would like to have things happen that would enrich your experience, wouldn't you? So you might be asking yourself, well, I've heard that there's hope. I've heard that this event has got 3 years and then they're going to see if it's going to come back. And it probably won't come back if all of these problems exist, right? And unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that that's pretty much never going to be the case. You see, an interesting thing happened with F1 Las Vegas, and that is where the F1 people, a company worth billions of dollars, decided to invest in their own facilities in a city for the very first time in their history. You see, they built paddocks, they built infrastructure, they built everything, and they're willing to build it up and tear it down all around these permanent buildings that they built right behind on the east side of the Strip. So whereas, there's a 3-year option for F1, I do believe that it would take mountains and huge amounts of pushback from people to actually move the event out of the city. I really don't think it's happening. I don't think it's happening. I think F1 is here to stay. So my advice to you, if you're coming here, dear viewers, is book your vacations before September or book them for New Year's Eve. And your vacation just got a lot more expensive if your vacation plans are going to be seeing the Bellagio fountains in all of their glory without a giant, huge grandstand built for billionaires to watch a race for $250,000 for a few minutes, because this is going to create a giant dent in the calendar for us forever. And maybe in time, more people in North America will love to get in front of F1 and they'll flock to it like they do their NFL football or their NASCAR races. But for the time being, it really just benefits the people at the top, and that's the hardest pill to swallow. Thanks for watching the video. My name is Steven. I'm not leaving Las Vegas. I'm a Vegas channel. If you guys want to and you guys can do something that might benefit you, I want you to check out NordVPN. They didn't sponsor me to do this video, but I use it personally to keep myself anonymous online because I don't like websites snooping on me. You'll find an affiliate link in the first comment of this video by that other F1 video that I did. So you guys can go and click on that, and be sure to subscribe if you guys want to subscribe to the channel. You check out our live streams. We're going to do more videos like this. And just as a side note, I was watching YouTube today, and one of the guys I used to watch, he was, a YouTube educator, and he tells you how to do channels. I don't know why he popped up in my stream, and they said there's something called easy mode on YouTube, and that's where you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours to make a video anymore. People just want to hear good ideas. They want to hear monologues. So that's what I'm trying here. So if you love it and you thought it was good, be sure to click the button, hit subscribe. We'll see you later. Leave us a comment below. Let us know. Do you love F1 in Vegas? Tell me if it's a hindrance or a help. And that's the time of the video where I say you're the best part of my day. I say 3, 2, 1, click. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, and click.